You're listening to Drummer Daily, the only daily podcast dedicated just to drummers, for a free video series explaining how you can become rock solid at playing drums with a click track in just 2 weeks in as little as 20 minutes per day. Visit boomclick.net. Well, hello, welcome back for more Drummer Daily. I am I was going to say esteemed host, but I think that's something that I can't ascribe to myself. I don't know if I'm esteemed. I'm your grateful host, Daniel. There we go. I'll say that. I can't say that I'm esteemed. I hope I am. Do you esteem me? I don't know what that means. But let's move on from that. So today, I thought we would talk a little bit. Now, if you disclaimer on this, by the way, if you subscribe to my newsletter, you've probably already heard me say some of this. And if you don't subscribe to my newsletter, you should, because I send it out once a week, and it's just me talking more about drum stuff. It's a little more in depth sometimes. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just a link to a podcast episode that I recorded or a YouTube video that I did or whatever that I just like to share. But it's never spammy, and I don't go crazy with it. So I'd love, if you don't subscribe to it, to check it out. That's at danielhadaway.com. I believe if you just go to danielhadaway.com, there's a button in the menu at the top that says newsletter. Click on that, and there's a little, put your name and your email address in, and you'll be all signed up, and you'll start getting it. I normally send them out on Tuesday, so that's when they've been going out recently. So anyway, but if you do subscribe to my newsletter, you've already seen me talk about this, but I thought I'd mention it here because I know many of you listeners here don't subscribe to the podcast, and I thought I'm not going to withhold information from you. I want you to enjoy it as well. So, I've kind of been recently, as I'm helping other people play drums and teaching more, realizing that technique is still very important to drumming. Now, in the email that I sent out, I mentioned a few specific techniques that I think are still useful for every drummer. If you get good at these, it'll actually help your playing overall and the feel of your playing. But I'm learning that I didn't think that I was a very technical drummer, and I don't think I am, from the aspect of like playing with lots of chops or really playing lots of notes or whatever. I don't think that I am, and I definitely don't think of myself as like a technical drummer or anything like that. But it took me really looking at my own playing and thinking at a very analytical level about what I'm doing. I was doing one of my drum intensives last weekend, and I was realized that when I try to describe what I do with my hands or my feet to someone else, I actually realized there is a lot of technique still in that. And it's funny because almost every technique or every kind of little thing that I tried to describe about my playing, I realized it actually goes back to rudiments and marching band and things like that. Now, I know that not everyone, you may not have had an experience in marching band, so I can't say, hey, go back to do the stuff you did in marching band, because maybe you didn't do it. But I will say that there are, for example, one of the techniques that I think everyone should get great at, is, if you're a drummer, is a paradiddle. And I think most of us know what a paradiddle is. If not, you can go Google that, look at YouTube, but it's just where you play right, left, and then left, left with your hands. And there's doubles and triples of that and all other kinds of things, but that's the basic one. And really, the paradiddle is a good example for this. So I want, in my own playing, there was a time, especially in high school when I was in marching band, where, one of my goals, and my instructor pushed me to do this, was to get as fast and as even as I could with my paradiddles. So the idea is that if I'm playing right, left, 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 all those notes are the same. And if you closed your eyes and listened, you couldn't tell the difference between whether I was playing a bunch of singles in a row, just right, left, over and over again, or if I happen to double a couple in there somewhere, like playing paradiddles, sonically it sounded all the same. The volume didn't change even the slightest bit between each hit. The spacing didn't change. They were even in every way, so that when you closed your eyes, you would have no idea what stick was hitting when, or if I was doubling whatever then. Now, doing all of that, just that in itself, doesn't really accomplish anything other than, the stuff you have to do in marching band, where they give you like stickings you have to do, and it looks cool. But what I've learned is that by getting good at doing something like that, it has allowed me to open up my possibilities in drumming. So the first step of that would be when I'm playing the drum kit, I was a middle school or high school thinking, and I would say, all right, I'm gonna do this drum fill, but I'm gonna use a paradiddle in this drum fill. So, I might go snare, rack, tom, so right, left, and then floor tom. So dun 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 dun. And those two floor tom hits would both be the right hand. So I'd go, the order would be snare. Sorry, my dog is in the background again, chewing a bone. You scraping across the wood floor. So you're going to hear right, left, right. Snare, rack, floor. Sorry, right, left, right. I don't know if I said that right. Snare, rack, floor. Yeah. Anyway, the first step of that would be I say I'm going to play a paradiddle. I'm going to do this thing. So at first you think about incorporating some of these techniques we learn into our playing. That's the first step. The second step, though, is when you actually get so fluid at doing that I'm not thinking paradiddle or whatever. I'm just able to drop in a double on either hand. So doing 2 hits in a row on either hand, just whenever I want. I just do it. I don't think about it. I'm able to just play without restriction or without thinking or without planning to some extent. That's the kind of thing that technique opens up for you. Is if you get good at a technique, I would still encourage you to work on technique, but not for the sake of having the technique figured out or for getting good at that technique. Unless you want to be a showy drummer, you're going to play a lot of chops, which if that's your thing, that's great. But even if you're not into that stuff, getting good at technique is worth it because it really gets us to a point, and this is kind of the place that like my ultimate goal as a drummer would be to someday get to the place where just like language, and I know we've talked about this before on the podcast, but just like me right now speaking to you, I'm not planning out every sentence that I'm speaking to you, and I'm definitely not writing it down. I don't have this written out anywhere. I'm just saying words literally as they come to my mind. I'm speaking them to you because I have enough words in my vocabulary that I can just speak sentences to you and they make sense and they're coherent for the most part, unless I get distracted by my dog. But drumming can be the same way. If we have enough language, enough words, drumming wise, in our vocabulary, enough phrases, enough statements in our drumming vocabulary, we can just play. We don't have to think about it anymore, but we can, and it doesn't mean that we're being spontaneous or we're being immature with our playing. It's actually a new level of maturity where we just speak what we want to on the drums without having to plan it all out so much. And in the next episode, I'm going to talk a little bit more about how to get there. But I just want you to think about that. Technique is really just the language of drumming. And, just like I said, at first you kind of plan out a paradiddle and you say, I'm going to play a paradiddle. Now as far as I'm going back to talking now, if I could say a bunch of sentences to you, and right now I couldn't go back and tell you, the exact last 4 sentences I just spoke to you. I kind of know the idea of them, but I might have said this word or that word, I don't know. And just like that with drumming, if you make a statement with your instrument, you play something on the drums, at a certain point, if you're not having to think about the technique you use to get there, you might play a song spontaneously or play something, and you could go back and say, I might have used a paradiddle there. I don't know, because there's so many different ways of playing it, so many options. You just play what you wanted to play, and you didn't have to think about it. So now you don't even know, the technique you used because it's all just so fluid and just comes out. And that I feel like is the thing that technique really can unlock, even for simple drummers like myself, is technique is the language. And if we get fluid in the language, we can just speak freely. And that's the ultimate goal, I think, for any musician, is to be able to do that. So I hope this encourages you to just go think about some techniques, even very simple techniques. If you don't know about rudiments, that's what it's called. That would be the place to start if you're a drummer and you haven't really gotten to that world at all. Google, drum rudiments, and I'm sure there's plenty of great resources online for that kind of stuff. And so check that out. But be inspired, I hope. Be inspired, I hope. I just talked about how good I am with language, and then I say a sentence like, be inspired, I hope. I hope that this inspires you to look at your technique a little more and think about what kind of possibilities it might unlock for you. But thanks for joining me today. And like I said, tomorrow we'll talk a little bit more about how to kind of start down that path and maybe some other ways to incorporate spontaneity into your drumming. All right, until then, we'll talk to you soon. Bye.